On this episode of Scammer Stories, sometimes I feel like I'm screaming into the void. There's just so little progress. Then, two huge news stories came out last week that I'll talk about a little later in the episode. But the big news we're talking about first is news from my area of advocacy, from Advocating Against Romance Scammers, or AARS, who, thanks to money donated by Match.com, is sending out romance scam kits to 200 police departments nationwide. Now, the face of that campaign is the focus of this episode. Kate has agreed to let AARS use her face as the image in the education campaign and in the kits. Not easy when you think about all of the survivors who are embarrassed to come forward. I'll let Kate describe how the romance scam kit idea came about, what's inside, and why she thinks it's important. First, we'll start with her story. And just like so many other stories you hear on this podcast, there are so many twists I didn't see coming. I guess we'll start with, how did you stumble upon advocating against romance scammers?
Well, I was involved in a romance scam, and I had trouble finding some help or support for it. And I finally ended up on the Fraud Watch network at AARP. And the man who answered my call asked me if I would be willing to tell my story. And it just exploded kind of from there. I've been asked to speak a number of places. I was interviewed, and that led to another interview, and would I come here and there. And over the past couple of years, I have spoken at the White House. I testified before the Senate Subcommittee on Aging. The New York Times sent a reporter here to me to interview me. I've been on Good Morning America, the Tamron Hall Show. It just goes on, and it's unbelievable how it has rippled out from that one phone call.
Got to get the word out, and that's the only way to do it. Were you ever hesitant in the beginning about sharing your story?
No, I actually felt like it was something I was supposed to do. And I had decided before I spoke the very first time that if I was going to tell any of it, I was going to tell all of it. So if anyone has questions, I don't keep any part of it private or hidden. I readily admit to being embarrassed by being involved in this, and admit to falling in love with someone I had never met, which sounds crazy.
Okay, so how did you and Kathy get together? And this project, this new project that AARS is launching, I think from what I've heard, it was kind of your idea.
I was actually able to speak to one of the women who was involved in the Tinder Swindler, that Netflix movie about the 4 women who were swindled simultaneously by the same man.
She's talking about the scam survivor who went on to host LoveCon Revenge on Netflix. We've talked about her on this podcast before and on the Facebook page.
This lady is now living in Norway, and she happened to tell me that when someone calls the police in Norway to report a scam, the police go to the victim and they send a trauma unit. And I was just amazed at that, because we don't get that kind of result here in the States. And I'm not criticizing, I'm not blaming. I'm just saying we don't have the same attitude. So I thought about when children are involved in a trauma, there are groups that donate stuffed animals to law enforcement to give to the children for whatever trauma they've been involved in, an accident, a domestic abuse, something they witnessed, or anything at all. They're given this stuffed animal just to hold on to and feel comforted. Now, stuffed animal wouldn't work for a scam victim, but I was trying to think of something that would provide some comfort. And I thought the warmth of a hug would be great, but I can't be everywhere. So the warmth of an Afghan, either around your shoulders, over your lap, something for you to hold on to, touch, know that you're supported, and feel that warmth from it. But not only provide that Afghan, give it to law enforcement free of charge to give to the victims, so that both parties, victims and law enforcement, are seeing each other just a little bit differently.
Instead of being turned away and saying, you gave your money
Yes.
away, you're stupid,
Yes.
go rebuild your life.
Right. For law enforcement to see that this is someone who is devastated by what has happened, you don't need to tell them or imply any further how stupid they are. They know that already. And for the victim to feel like maybe they have found some source that is trying to reach out and help them.
And then there are going to be some other resources in this kit, from what I understand. The
Yes.
one thing that I struggle with the most, the one question I get the most that I cannot answer, that we cannot provide in that kit, is how do you get your family member to stop talking to a scammer?
I wish I had some magic to take care of that. And I am at the point where I think there's some element of Stockholm syndrome in this. That, Stockholm syndrome is when someone's been kidnapped and the person who's kidnapped falls in love with their kidnapper.
It's not a bad theory. I mean, why else would a man or woman who had their money stolen turn around and help the scumbags do the same thing to someone else?
I don't know how to break through that, but I would hope sometime in this country a new department could be created where all these people who deal with scams are under one umbrella. And it would include psychologists who maybe be able to break through somehow or help us to understand how to reach someone who has been hurt, injured financially, but still feels like this person loves them and is not going to hurt them.
Okay, so let's back up a little. Tell
Okay.
us when your nightmare started and how that all began.
Well, I had been widowed for about 12 years when this happened. I was not looking for any romance. My heart still feels married to my husband. We had a wonderful marriage. He just died way too soon. So I was not out there looking for romance, but this happened during the lockdown of the pandemic. And I believe that that had a bigger effect on us than we will ever realize. It's when you're told you can't go out. You can't go see your family. You can't go to church. You can't go to the store during the hours you want to go or whatever it is. That as soon as you're told you can't, that's all you want to do. It has an effect on you. So I got these pictures one day of a very handsome man dressed as a doctor, a surgeon, as a matter of fact. And he sent me a friend request on Facebook. I never, ever, ever accept friend requests from someone I don't know until this day that I did. I still have no idea why in the world I would accept this friend request when I had gotten a number of them from men who I had myself listed as a widow on Facebook, not knowing when I opened my account that there were things I should have kept private or parameters I should have put on my profile. I know that now.
And widow is definitely
Yeah.
the big one. Do not put that on your
Yes.
account. Yeah, my mom had that on her
Yes.
account as well.
It was what I am. So that's what I put. I didn't know then that I should have kept that knowledge to myself. But yeah, they look for widows. They look for people who they think will tumble at their request for whatever tragedy is going on in their life. Someone who wants to help, the motherly type or whatever. They really study profiles before they send a friend request. So it's not haphazard at all. They are targeting people.
So then you started a conversation, I'm assuming, with this guy.
Yes. Started the conversation and it was kind of fun. It was like, wow, this guy's really handsome. And after a few days, he wanted me to download an app so that he could hear my voice. And it was Hangout or WhatsApp. And there is nothing wrong with the apps. I don't want to get in trouble with anyone about saying anything about the apps, but they are untraceable. And that's why the scammers use them, because there was no way I could have ever found out that even though he said he was in Iraq working as a surgeon, that his messages and phone calls were coming to me from South Africa.
Okay, so how long was it before it became, did it ever become romantic or?
Oh, definitely. And he started within a few days. Oh, I just know I love you. I know you're the woman I want to spend my life with. And I'm like, whoa, buddy, we haven't even met. So let's keep that part, to a minimum. No, I know it. And I've told my kids. Now, he said he was my age. And when I pushed about that, I said, well, what year were you born? Oh, there goes my beeper. I've got to go. So he got off the phone and then figured it out. When he called
Mm.
me back, he knew what the year was, but told me he had younger children because he had been married to a much younger woman who had died of leukemia. That was possible. There was some kernel of credibility in that, I thought. So the children were in England in a boarding school during this lockdown of the pandemic, and they wanted to call me mom. Well, my husband and I were not able to have children, so I waited all my life for somebody to call me mom. And although I never spoke with the children, they emailed me almost every day. And they were so excited. They called me mom. They told me they loved me. They were so happy that their dad was so happy. Could we get a puppy when we were all together as a family? Could they get a basketball hoop for the backyard? Could we do this and that? And it made it very real to me. And there was still no request for money until one day the daughter was supposed to be sick and she emailed me in a panic, and I'm sick and I have no money and I've got the COVID. I need an N95 mask. I don't know what to do. And I contacted Tony, who was the scammer, and he asked me if I would get her a gift card. And I said, well, I will. I will help, certainly, but I'm in Philadelphia and she's in England. So how am I going to help her? By the time I mail it, it's going to be several weeks. And he said, oh, no, no, you just take pictures of the front and the back and you send her those pictures. I said, well, how the heck does that work? We can't do that here in the United States. Oh, no, no, just trust me. She'll be able to use it as money. So I did what he said. And before I got up from the computer, I checked the balance of the card and it was already back at zero. So they snatched that money right off that first card.
She's talking about the gift cards. That's usually the first form of money they ask for. Easy to buy, hard to trace. They spend the money or sell them on the dark web.
You'll even find some gift cards that are hanging on racks in the stores have been tampered with. Those numbers
Yes,
have been recorded.
absolutely.
So it's
Mhm.
it's a tough, industry to crack. And gift cards are never, please remember, they're never used to pay bills or what have you. So if someone is asking you for a lot of gift cards for something, think twice before you do it, please.
Okay, so then he went on, and after that first time you sent him money, he thought, all right, I got my hooks in her. I can probably get more.
Yes. Yes. Well, the next day, then he said his son had his nose out of joint because his sister got a card and couldn't he get a card? So could I please get him one? Well, a few days later, then Tony said, I could get better food here in Iraq if I had money to buy something, upgrade my food. So, yes, I would do that. He's in the desert. In order for him to call me, he needs a better signal. He needs to pay for that. And he needs to bribe the guards for this and that and the other. And it just was one thing after another. And if I hesitated or said, took me a while to even open my mouth and say, I'm having trouble paying my bills now because I'm sending all this money to you and I don't have money to spare like this. Oh, I'm going to pay you back the minute I get there. And he even sent me a link. And here again, I should not have used a link that he sent. I should have gone online and typed in myself bankofamerica.com and looked that way. But he sent me a link. I clicked on it. He gave me his username, his password. I put that in, and up comes his account. It was beautifully done website, beautifully done. They're very talented. And it looked like the actual Bank of America website. And his balance came up of a little over $2 million. So I could trust him. I could lend him money. He said it was so dangerous in Iraq that if he had any link to his bank, if he showed any withdrawals or what have you, that the people in Iraq would be able to trace that and they would have taken his money. That's why he needed my money and that he could pay me back when he got here.
Okay, so then I guess the asks just kept coming and kept coming until you reached, how much did you reach?
Well, the total that I gave him was $39,000, and
Okay.
that's not easy to say, but that was everything I had.
Mhm.
My savings account, the rest of my husband's life insurance. Tony even knew what day of the month my Social Security hit. And he'd say, oh, I know you've got money today, so you can get me a gift card and I can eat today. But he wanted to come to the States to meet me. and get married. And his plan was to ask for leave time and come to Philadelphia and then retire when he got here so he wouldn't have to go back to Iraq. And he wanted to get married. But of course, he needed the airfare to get here, and that was $1,500. So I did that as well.
And then did you go to the airport?
Well, I lived in Delaware County at that point, which was 2 miles away from the Philadelphia International Airport. And I said to him, if you call me when you get off the flight, by the time you get your luggage, I'll be at the door. I live that close. Okay. So we had that plan, and I spent all day getting ready. He was to land at 10 o'clock that night, and I just couldn't wait. And 10 o'clock came, and I thought, oh, he's landing. 11 o'clock, I thought, oh, well, you don't always taxi right into a gate. Sometimes you stay out on the tarmac if there's other flights, and he has to go through customs and get his luggage and what have you. It's okay. 12 o'clock, I'm a little more concerned. And he told me it was a UN flight, so I didn't have an airline or flight number to call and check on. He had even sent me that morning a picture of himself, or the man whose pictures he was using, at an airport with his suitcase. I'm right here. Can't wait. Next time we talk, I'm going to be in the same room with you. Isn't this great? Oh, I can't wait. I mean, that's how far this went.
You were probably just giddy with excitement.
I was, because it was really nice talking to a man again. And I forgot just how wonderful it was to be in love. And after so many weeks, I mean, this was like 4 months after our initial contact on Facebook. And by that point, he was calling me 5 and 6 times a day, sometimes only for just a minute. I just want to hear your voice, honey. Just want to say good night. But every night he would call and say, how was your day, honey? And nobody asked me that anymore. It was nice. And I will readily admit that I developed feelings for him.
Now, did he have an accent?
He did, and I could not quite place it. He told me he was from Norway, but of course he spoke, when he called me on the phone, he was very smooth and, had this wonderful voice to listen to. So I'm sure he practiced that a lot before he ever moved on to that, section of making the scam calls, that he had been rehearsed on how to sound and what to say and whatnot. But I could not place the accent when I heard it, but it was romantic.
And so that night, he never shows up. And then what happens?
So that night, he didn't show up. And in the morning, I got a phone call at 8 a.m., and it was another man who said he was Tony's lawyer, and that Tony had been arrested at the airport when he picked his bag up off the carousel, that the drug-sniffing dog had indicated there were drugs in the bag. So he had been arrested. Now they needed bail money to get him out, and he wanted $20,000 for me to post bail for him. Well, all I could do was cry, because I didn't have $20, let alone $20,000. And this man kept saying, but don't you love him? How can you leave him in there? You've got to find a way to get that money. And I'm like, I don't know where in the world I would get $20,000. Well, sell your life insurance policy. Like, no, I can't do that. It's already set up to pay for my funeral, because I didn't have children. And I didn't want anyone else to have to be burdened with arranging my funeral and I went and made the arrangements, and I signed over my life insurance to the undertaker. So that's not available. Well, sell your car. Well, my car is leased. And he's like, he didn't understand this lease business at all. Well,
an attorney who doesn't understand the leasing a car.
No, he was from overseas somewhere.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, now it's 2 out of 2 I can't do. Well, remortgage your house. And I said, well, I've never done that, but I understand it takes a while. I can't walk into the bank at 2 o'clock and walk out at 3 o'clock with a check. So how is that going to help Tony? Well, you go to your family. I thought, they don't even know about this. And I'm sure, because somewhere in the back of my mind, some little part of me was saying, this isn't real. Wait till he gets here before you tell your sisters that you have this new love interest in your life. So no one knew. How could I suddenly spring it on them that, hey, my fiance, who you've never met, that's right, I haven't met him either, is in jail in Philadelphia, and I need $20,000 to get him out. So what do you think?
Oh, great idea. Here, let me write you a check.
Yes, exactly. Want that in cash or a check, It wouldn't have worked. My sisters love me, but not for $20,000 for someone they never met. No. So I did not give in. But I said, if he's in Philadelphia and I'm 2 miles away, get me on the visitors list. I can at least go meet him. Oh, only the attorney can get in to see him. Well, I knew that wasn't true. And that was the first crack in the foundation that maybe this is just not what you think it is. You're
Now,
going to have to face this.
now that's interesting because I don't know if a lot of people would know that's not true. How did you know that's not true?
Well, I know prisoners. I've been on visitors list to
Oh,
go
okay. Because
see someone, so I knew that
okay,
you need to be added to the list. Someone has to, the prisoner themselves, or maybe the attorney could add you to the list to get in. But just that the attorney was the only one. That's just not so.
okay.
I guess he must have gone back to Tony and said, "Hey, she's a harder nut to crack than we think. We're going to have to go to plan B." And Tony calls me and he's crying. "Please get me out of here. Please, you've got to get me out of here. I can't stand it. It's killing me." I told him I had no money. "Well, you've got to find it. You do whatever you have to do. I'm going to pay you back." And then he started calling several times a day. And I said, "Okay, how are you calling me 4 and 5 times a day from prison?
Yeah, not collect.
I've got privileges. I'm a doctor." I said, "Look around, bud. You're not the only doctor in jail."
Unfortunately.
And he said, "Well, I need to get me a gift card because I need to upgrade my food in here. The food is terrible." I said, "Well, it doesn't work that way in this country. Check out that UN menu that you've had overseas and see if you can't get something from there because I'm done. I am done. I know you're scamming me." "No, I'm not. No, I'm not." So I ended my phone calls. And it honestly, losing all that money is still devastating to me. But losing that love broke my heart. It
That's
really destroyed me.
that's why so many women continue.
Yes.
They can't handle that
Yes.
heart. That I mean, I've been through heartbreak before, and man, ooh, that's some tough stuff. And there's not a pill that helps with that. So I
No,
get it.
no. And feeling the humiliation of finally opening up and telling him that I loved him, only to find out that I was just another page in the book for the day that he was working. It just killed me that I had let myself fall in love with him only to find out none of it was true. I cried forever over that. It really did a number on me, and I can understand why the suicide rate is so high. You don't want to face people, you're embarrassed. I didn't want to tell anybody that this had happened to me.
So tell me about how it happened then with your sisters.
Well, I had a friend who was calling me because we were still in the lockdown, and she called me most every night, and she kept saying, "You sound sad. You sound like there's something wrong." Like, "No, I'm fine. I'm great. No problem here." And finally, after a week or so, she broke me down, and I told her what had happened. And she said, "You need to tell your sisters." And I said, "Oh man, I would do anything rather than tell my sisters." But no, you're going to have to because you're in financial trouble. And I was. I mean, my cell phone had been turned off, my electricity had been turned off, but I did manage to get that back on again. But I didn't live like this. I didn't live on the edge of my finances. I mean, I never had a lot, but I got my bills paid, but I couldn't do it now. So I'm very close to my sisters, but I didn't want to tell them separately. I have 3 sisters. I wanted to tell them all at the same time. Everybody's going to hear the same thing at the same moment. So I sent them a text saying, "I need to tell you all something. I've set up a Zoom." Now, I was a secretary when I was working, so I relied on my secretarial skills. "I've set up a Zoom at 7 o'clock Sunday night, so please make yourself available. Don't call me over the weekend. Just let me get through the weekend and we'll talk Sunday night." I thought that I said it's not a medical issue. I thought I said that. I only said that in my brain. So the poor sisters thought all weekend that I was dying from something. But in the meantime, I was making up a bulleted list of what I wanted to say, in what order I wanted to say it. And I wanted to make sure that they knew all the details and what have you. And when we got on the call Sunday night, I said, I've been involved in a romance scam. And I could hear all three of them go, oh, it's not cancer. She's not dying. So I actually got a little slack from that, that I had not mentioned it to them that it wasn't medical. But I said, please just let me get through this. There will be time for questions and answers after,
It's like
not
a
during.
seminar. It's like a seminar. Questions and answers will be later
Yes,
after.
yes. Keep your questions and hold on to them till the end. So I'm not looking at them. I'm looking at my list and I'm reading off line by line what I wanted to say. And I get to the very bottom. So, of course, my head is down because I'm looking at the last bulleted point on the paper. And I stop and I'm waiting. And I'm waiting for one of them to channel our father, who's going to say, how damn dumb can you be? I'm waiting for one of them to say that. But they didn't. One of them said, you're very brave. And of course, that made me cry.
Oh, I know it's bringing tears to my eyes.
And then we were all crying, and they were angry that this had happened. They were angry at someone who did this to me, but they were upset that I had been through that. So it didn't turn out the way I thought it was going to.
Well, I'll tell you, the only time that the family members get mad is like in my case, when my mother won't stop. Now that's when it gets frustrating.
Yeah.
I would have been totally fine if she lost 350,000. If she lost 350,000 and came to me and said, April, I lost this money. I'm not talking to him anymore. Let's move on. And we would have all come together as a family and figured out how to help her. Our relationship was damaged. So you stopped and yeah, you've been through enough. You'd been through enough. They didn't need to put you through anymore.
Well, unfortunately, in my case, that's not the end of my story.
Oh.
In May, we had our first really warm day. We had an unusually warm day. And I don't do well in the heat. And I flipped on my central air and it didn't come on. And I thought, what am I going to do? I mean, I don't have $10 to even have somebody come look at it, let alone fix it. And I am not going to be able to stand this heat. But I also had 6 hospice dogs that I was taking care of. And I wanted them to be comfortable. So I ended up hooking up a portable air conditioner in my living room. And I didn't have an outlet in the living room that would take a 3-pronged plug. So I got one of those big, long, orange extension cords. And it went out to the kitchen where I could plug it in. And I used that. And the 6 dogs and I stayed in the living room as much as we could, because that's the room I could keep the coolest. On July 16th of that year, 2022, I woke up at 5 a.m. and my living room was on fire. And the air conditioner and the extension cord were spitting out flames in the living room. The dogs took off to the back of the house. I picked up their dog beds trying to beat out all these little fires, and I would get 3 out and 6 more would start. And the draperies were up in flames. The couch was up in flames. I thought, man, you got to do something. So I called 911 and reported the fire, and my electricity went out because the fire ate through the wires. So now I'm in complete darkness and I can't find my way out. The worst part is it had been so hot, I was sleeping in my underwear.
Oh, no.
And
Everybody thinks about that, too. What happens if there's a
I
fire?
had to walk out the house on a street where I had lived for 42 years in my underwear. And there are some things that should remain a mystery. And me in my underwear is one of them.
Oh, no. Okay, so
But
you made it out. You found your way
I
out.
was covered in soot, and I had swallowed a lot of the heat and my throat was injured from breathing in the flames and what have you.
I do news stories on it all the time during my day job.
Oh
all
my
the time.
gosh.
And the dogs?
None of the dogs made it.
Oh, no.
The house burnt down completely. I lost everything I owned, everything I had left from my husband, and the 6 dogs died in the fire. So I lost my money, I lost my possessions, and I lost my little fur babies as well. So I was kind of stripped down to like nothing. But when I called AARP and this man, first off, he said to me, that hammer you have in your hand, hitting yourself over the head with, it's time to put it down. And I want to do that in cross stitch or something because that has carried me so much. I love that quote.
That's a good one to remember for sure.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes.
Where did you go that night after the fire? Did they put you up and did Red Cross put you up in a hotel or something? Or
I was admitted to the burn unit. So
oh,
I was in the hospital for a little bit. And then by that point, I had contacted my homeowner's insurance and they put me up in a hotel. Now, let me just tell you this, a few months fast forward, I had a new laptop. I'm still waiting for my insurance to be settled. So I'm living in the hotel. Tony's ringtone comes through my laptop. And I thought, oh my God, it's Tony. And I ran and answered it without even thinking. I just answered it.
that dopamine hit came through and yeah.
Yes. Yes. And he said, hi, hon, how are you? Like we had talked that morning or something. And I said, how am I? So I told him the house had burned down. The dogs, all of the dogs had died. And he's like, oh my God, that is awful. Oh, my baby, my poor honey. I'm so sorry. That's terrible. But listen, I need a gift card. Can you get me one for $50 this
Uh,
afternoon? I'm not going to tell you how I answered that question because it would burn up this podcast, I'm sure, if I told you. But I said, have you listened to me? Have you listened to what I just said? How much I've lost? I have no money. And he said, oh, yes, you do. I know you have money. I said, well, would you like to tell me where it is? Because I would sure as heck like to have it. And he said, your friends started a GoFundMe page for you. And I know not only that they started it, I know what the balance is.
oh, wow. So a big round of applause for Kate allowing advocating against romance scammers to use her picture and her story. If you'd like to contribute to the project or help in any way, go to AARS. It's advocatingforyou.com. That's the letter U, advocatingforyou.com. Now, back to the big worldwide news. Chen Zi was arrested. Now, Chen Zi, also known as Vincent, he's the accused mastermind of the pig butchering compounds in Southeast Asia that are human trafficking people to sit behind a keyboard and scam people out of massive amounts of money. The FBI says it's one of the biggest financial fraud takedowns in history. Now we're talking, but it's still just a sliver of the huge pie. Another recent headline is that Elon Musk decided to cut off some of the internet provided by his Starlink to that area. So these two stories are the biggest news to come out of the romance scam and pig butchering world since I started this podcast years ago. But we still have a long way to go. In the meantime, keep the emails coming. It's scammerstoriespodcast@gmail.com. Just email April. Until next time, Scammer Warriors.